that is kind of our core mission, is we help brands tell their stories, and we want to make sure that that content cuts through the noise and reaches the right people. So I started Chatterkick about 5 years ago. I am not one that would consider myself an entrepreneur. I have very little risk that I like to take in my life. I've done some fun adrenaline-seeking things, but when it comes to financial risk, I am a safe player. I'm really cheap, and the idea of quitting a job and just taking a guess that you'll make money the next month is really terrifying to me. And so I never, ever thought I would start my own business. But I initially graduated from school. I was a PR major and Spanish. And then I went, did some jobs, and then eventually got picked up by the American Red Cross. And this was back when social media was really new to businesses and organizations. And the American Red Cross at that time was they were getting a ton of national attention, and they were one of the first organizations to take those tools that we've had for a long time, right? Like forums, they've been around since the internet's been around. But these tools that were coming up at the time, Facebook was just starting their ad side, blogging was just kind of coming into its own as a brand perspective. And so I got a chance to work for the American Red Cross. I was located in Sioux City, but I kind of got stationed nationally, and got to work with some big brands, the Today Show, ABC Nightly News, a lot of those big brands, and really had a great opportunity to see how the scale of social media could really make a difference in business. So I worked out of DC for a couple of months, and then came back to the Sioux City area with my full intention of continuing my job at American Red Cross. But at that time, my now good friend, and she was my boss at the time, Debbie Durham, came up to me and said, I want you to work at the chamber. A friend had kind of referred me to her, and she's just an awesome, just an amazing person. And so I was really excited for the opportunity to work under her. I took a job at the Chamber of Commerce, which is kind of that local chamber that covered the South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska area, because we're right on the corner there in Sioux City. And it was probably the best setup to starting a business you could have, because I literally just went out to businesses and said, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm with the chamber. What do you need help with? And I just kind of left that question open. And I think at some points they were a little bit like, what does this have to do with the chamber? But they would tell me their problems. And I kept hearing the same problems. One was, how do I get the word out about my business? Right? Big manufacturers were wondering how to get the word out of their business because they needed employees. They didn't need the consumer side, but they needed employees. Small businesses, they need foot traffic, and they needed actual sales, right? And so I kind of heard this common thread, and I just came back from the Red Cross working on social media specifically, and I just kind of decided, well, just do this, right? Create a website. Like, don't spend tens and thousands of dollars on a website, just make a WordPress one. And, I started a Facebook page. It's free, right? At that time, you could get a ton of reach just by putting a Facebook page up. It wasn't a super crowded space. And so I would go and I would help businesses set these things up, kind of walk them through it, train them. And looking back at that now, it was a really good indication for me of the need at that time. This is, again, about 5 years ago. And so a friend came to me and said, hey, he's a commercial real estate developer. And he said, hey, you want to be a commercial real estate, agent? And I was like, I don't know. Like, didn't really have a passion for that. I didn't want to kind of have that lifestyle of being on call all the time. And so I said, no thanks, but I have this idea. Like, I think social media, this could be a thing. And, I know obviously there's a lot of agencies on the coast, but starting a social media agency in Sioux City, Iowa, like, if I start something, it's not just going to be a small business, right? Like, that's just not me. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I had big ideas. And he's like, okay, well, I got your back. And so that was December 2nd. And by February 2nd, we launched Chatterkick. And the name kind of just came from a giant whiteboard and brainstorming, and I wanted something easy to spell phonetically when you're on the phone with someone. Like, I didn't want to spell some weird Y's and I's and have it be too quirky where people really wouldn't understand. And so we kind of went with it. I was 100% prepared to pick up the phone and beg people for their business at the time, which probably helped at I was kind of hungry and ready to hustle. And it just so happened we landed a franchise on about, the early parts of our I think it was like within the first week, and we had a whole bunch of other clients kind of come on because they knew what I was doing through the chamber. And so when I say we, it was my partner and I, who he had no idea on the social side, but he has set up and ran a ton of businesses. So he kind of took that lane. I took the social media and implementation lane, and I had an intern, and we just started kind of building. We built that, we kind of got the ball rolling quickly. We had more clients come on, and it really has just kind of snowballed since then.
Was it a surprise to you that it happened so fast?
Yes. I mean, I remember when I started Chatterkick, my parents were super supportive, but I definitely think that they didn't know if it was a business, right? That's the ultimate risk you take, is will somebody pay me for what I'm doing? Like, I would love to help people all day long, but is there enough value there that transaction is going to occur, and it's not going to take a long time for it to do so? And honestly, one of the things that I see now way more so than it was then is the spread at which we as consumers are using products, right? I mean, we use Snapchat hundreds of times a day, right? But if I asked a crowd of businesses how many of them post on Snapchat hundreds of times a day, nobody. So that gap between what businesses are doing and what consumers are doing is getting larger and larger, and the pace is moving faster and faster. And so having a good hold of how to do social, how to do it well, how to measure it well, what it means for business, and realizing that this isn't just fluff, like there's strategic and actual results that can happen to this. And by the way, don't be annoying on social. Like that's a big thing that seems common sense to us as consumers, but brands don't get that, right? Like, I don't know how many times I see ads from big brands that have amazing budgets that just, like, their posts are horrible. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of change that and shift that crappy content, the stock photos. Please, no stock photos on any social media. It doesn't work, and it feels stock photo-ish, right? I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. So, like I said, we kind of started Chatterkick about, since January, we have hired, I don't even know, maybe 10 people. We have about 20 now. We hired like 7 in the last 2 weeks. So we're growing very, very quickly. We're growing our footprint. There's a lot of opportunity for us. And so, we kind of, it's been a wild ride, that's for sure.
So you mentioned measurement, and we've looked at Facebook Insight data. We've spent a fair amount of time looking at Google Analytics and driving traffic to websites, and a little bit with Twitter Analytics. And we've just started to talk about these other sites like Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Snapchat. What are you doing in those spaces to measure?
So that's a great question. And I think there's 2 kind of parts to that answer. The first is, the things that you really need to measure are the things that your client cares about, right? And I think that is so powerful, because I could tell you how many impressions you get and be extremely excited about that, but if your client has no idea or no even intention to care about it, what an impression means, throw that metric away, right? Because it doesn't matter. If that's not something that they see value in, then it really doesn't make a difference to them. And you need to reposition what that means a different way. Right? So a couple of ways that I like to communicate value in terms of measurement. The first is awareness. If your goal is awareness, a lot of people say, I just want people to know, I want awareness, right? So there's a handful of metrics that relate to awareness. The first is, in most cases with digital and social advertising, we can control what people and how many people are exposed to a message, right? Put more money behind it, or build a more audience, or post more times, right? You can kind of control that pushing of content, where it needs to be pushed, how many people it'll reach. But what you can't control is engagement. So you need to have both of those metrics, the push and then the action, because if you have too much of a spread there, it means you have crappy content. That's a content problem. That's not a platform problem. That's not it's Twitter, the audience wasn't there, Pinterest, it doesn't matter, right? If you have that engagement, if it's close to how many people are seeing it and they're excited about that, then that shows value, because you can't control engagement. I can't make you write a comment. I can't make you like a post, right? You need to have kind of both sides of that. The other kind of part of that is social is very different, and you have to think of mindsets, right? So the difference between, like, for example, is everybody familiar with like Google AdWords, like search campaigns? So like when you Google lawyer or whatever, and those first 3 things that come up on your search result that say ad next to them, so businesses are paying for that, and there's like a bid and auction system, right? So those type of ads, and even just kind of thinking if you're searching for a job, right? You're going to go to Monster, you're going to go to Indeed, you're going to go to all these sites where people are actively looking. Their mindset is discovery. So they're searching for something. I'm searching for a college. I'm searching for something. So it's a very specific way that they're looking to consume content. On social, it's very different, right? I'm looking for pictures of my friends. I'm looking for updates on what's happening in the news. I'm looking for links and relevant information. And oh, by the way, do you want to buy that shirt? There's a lot. So you're not in that mode, right? You're not in the discovery mode. In most cases on some of these platforms, you're just seeing what's going on. And so to shift that mindset, you have to kind of understand what that means to consumer behavior, right? Like purchases are probably going to be lower on that than they are if you're doing a search campaign, because yes, I may still purchase through my news feed, but I want that presented to me in a, hey, I'm curious about that. Not I was looking for that and this was the end of my search result, right? So a lot of the measurement really has to do with, what's the end goal? And again, throw away the metrics that don't matter to the client, because in the end, you have so much data. There's so much data with this stuff. And a lot of the times that data can't be pieced together because you don't have all the components, or in the end, it just may not matter.
Which tools are most important for Chatterkick?
You know how many softwares we have? I swear our software budget just keeps getting... There is no perfect tool. None of them. All of these softwares that measure engagement, Facebook pages, Instagram, all these are piecemeal. If there's a beautiful one out there, we haven't found it. And we have clients that work with big budgets and small budgets. So we use a lot. We use FanPage Karma is one out of the UK. It's a lot of people don't know about, but I love it because it has a competition theory, they call it. And so you literally can put one Facebook page against another Facebook page, and it'll show you who the winner is based on a variety of metrics. That's free on that component. They also have a paid version. We use Sprout Social a lot to manage and schedule our content. Hootsuite's another one that a lot of businesses use. It's free. Sprout is not. But honestly, like if I was consulting with a nonprofit, the biggest thing from a measurement standpoint is, getting them the metrics, figuring out what metrics they care about and making them as visual as possible, right? Because the numbers overwhelm most people. And so if you can take those numbers and make them visual, make them colorful, graphs, charts, find a way that there's a software that gives you that spits that out. And FanPage Karma kind of does that. I think that's a great thing to use.
Any other tools that you all have worked with?
What do you guys like to use?
We use Social Report at work.
Okay.
Which we did have Hootsuite, but we just switched over to that. It works pretty well.
Yeah. Does it aggregate Facebook, Twitter, and is that it?
Yeah, Instagram
LinkedIn?
and Google Plus, and
It does pull Instagram metrics in?
actually no, it doesn't do Instagram.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Instagram doesn't.
It's an
API
option,
open.
but it doesn't.
Now, Instagram is developing some native stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, so Instagram's got a lot of things going on. So the biggest pain in the butt with Instagram is they don't have a publishing feature to go from these third-party app platforms. So you can run paid ads through Facebook, which we do all the time, on Instagram. That happens all the time. So if you're seeing these new Instagram things in your newsfeed, you don't even have to have an Instagram account. You can just push it through on Instagram through Facebook. They're owned by the same company, and that's part of the deal. So that's one way that people are kind of getting into Instagram without having to manage the community on Instagram. Instagram, like, response metrics do come in on some of the platforms. So there are some that will pull in the data, but they just won't let you publish. Yeah. Which again, all these are just all these platforms are a little bit halvesies. So there's really no perfect solution. The thing that drives me crazy about Hootsuite, I love Hootsuite for publishing, but the charge is what you want the most, right? The reports. Mm-hmm. Like, so if I'm gonna have to pay for Hootsuite anyways, I might as well pay for a platform that I like Sprout a lot better than Hootsuite for scheduling. What about other tools have you guys used? What are some of your clients using? You're working with a couple clients, right? Are they using anything? Hootsuite. Anybody? No.
Our client email. Yeah.
What did you say? They're not using
I said they haven't been using email.
Yeah, we're still trying to get them back on track.
That's I know it's frustrating, but keep in mind that is so the real world. I mean, do you know how many times we have to chase our clients down? We call them, we text them. Every time before a new client comes on board, we try to figure out what platform or what way do they respond, right? Do they only respond to text messages? Then just text them. Do they like to be Facebook Messenger? Like, that's a thing. Some people like to do that. So it's trying to find and what time of day, right? If Saturday's the only time I can get my doctor to respond to me, one of the doctors we work with, then I got to do it on Saturdays because it's going to save me so much headache. So trying to navigate that client communication in the end will benefit you, I promise. But I know it is. It's a pain.
We were talking before class that the experience of trying to work with a client is maybe one of the most important experiences as a student that you can get.
Yeah, I think, if I would give you key values that we look for when we're hiring, and I mean, we are really hiring like social media people, so this is very kind of relevant to this class, but it's not so much, skill level is extremely important. Accuracy, we have terminated people because spelling errors, because you're client facing, right? If you put the wrong spelling out there, like that's a big deal. And it's extremely important that everything is double, triple. There's systems in place and process. So spelling is really important. So attention to detail is something we really look for. Communication, specifically how you make your email tone. Emails can be so they can feel very harsh. And how to make that email tone authoritative, but yet personal, and really making sure that fits the needs of the client. Like, that's really important. Writing, just in general, is really important to us. And then response. So we really strive for rapid fire response on all of our emails. So if you are a client and you email me, I should within the hour definitely get back to you, hopefully quicker, and say, hey, thank you for emailing me. I'm checking into that. I'll email you back at this time, and then follow through. Because every email needs to be responded to, just like every single Facebook post, single Instagram. Like, it's really important if someone's taking time out of their day to respond to you as a person or as a brand, like getting back to them and at least acknowledging the fact that you saw it, you got it, and thank you for their message. So client communication is huge. And if anybody has experience in that, there's a lot of people that don't, and a lot of people that think that they know how to do Facebook because they have a Facebook account. I swear, 90% of the people I interview, like that's the thing. And it's really hard, honestly, for us to screen people because it is such a widely used tool. So I think there's probably people that would have been really good if they had some coaching and training, but just maybe weren't quite ready for our positions. And other people that got jobs that Chatterkick was too fast for them. Like, we move super fast, we have high profile clients, and it's not the job for everybody. It seems all fun, and we do have a lot of fun, and we're taking Instagram stories in the parking lot, and we're having fun. But it's still work, right? It's still a job. You still got the crap to put up with, and and it doesn't really shut off ever, right? So your clients are emailing you at 4 a.m. or texting you. We had one nightclub in Miami, and we launched it, and it was a high profile club, a lot of celebrities, lots of big brands, and when Paris Hilton's talking to you and you're on the other end, you're in a microscope, right? Celebrities are extremely high maintenance, and they're extremely high profile on social. So we were having to respond. It was a 24-hour nightclub, so it was really, really tough. But we did it. I think we got 30,000 fans within less than a 6-month window, and tons of engagements, lots of high profile DJs and different performers and artists. So it's kind of crazy, but it's part of the gig. So
I wanted to ask you about our advertising group in town. AAF Omaha had a panel this last month focused on Latino and Latina markets as such a growing and impactful space to work. What's your firm, if anything, doing in that area right now?
So the good news is social is really good at targeting that stuff. Not so much because of it's self-identified. Like, for example, if I'm targeting someone on Facebook, I'm not going to target that their language is Spanish, but I know that I can target music groups that are like Spanish speakers typically gravitate to, or maybe it's products that are really designated to. So I can kind of create that interest group and show them those messages regardless of the language, right? Because we have a lot of people that identify or are Hispanic that just don't speak Spanish, or maybe they like a mix of like Spanish English. You know, they're a couple generations, they speak English, they like ads in Spanish. So it's like kind of that mix, especially on social. And I think if you show, it doesn't matter what group you're talking about, if it's, you know, women or ethnic group or whatever, if you show somebody that it's the content that they actually like, it doesn't matter, you know, what kind of targets you have on them, because that's the whole point of targeting, right? It should feel good to you. It should feel like, gosh, I really like these leggings, or these are the boots I just wanted, right? Or this is so interesting. That's the type of content that should come through your news feed and your feeds on all of your different social channels, not the crap that feels like, you know, I always use insurance, right? Insurance is, they try. I give them credit. They try. But I still don't think they have it right, because I don't feel like they're addressing the problems that I really have with insurance, you know, and it still comes across way too forced. You know, if there is an insurance company that said, hey, guess what? You don't have to sit on hold. That's my pain point, right? Like, I will give you a human the first ring. Now that I would call, right? That would be an insurance company that would resonate with me. I don't care what other like humor and stuff, like that's great, that's fun, it's entertaining, but is that gonna make me buy your product? Like, you're not solving my problem. I think when you're on social, you really have to think of that, like what problem am I solving? How am I making this person's life better? How am I telling a story that's emotionally connecting to the audience? And so I think that's really important. And make it not boring, right? That's also important. Pull up our Chatterkick Instagram. You can it's just Chatterkick, or Instagram.com/Chatterkick. All of our stuff, I feel like, is where we kind of put some of our fun stuff. Our Facebook page is fun. So this is, put your mouse over that, play that video. So this is what's called rotoscoping. So basically,
I gotta adjust it here.
it's fun.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, so the rotoscoping, it's fun, right? It's where you literally draw on the picture and then the movements happen. And so we're doing a lot of this where it's just another way to like animate still images. This really for us is all about like our team, our culture. We like to just be goofy, quite frankly. But we want our content to feel like what we see trend. Which is Bitmojis. Like, we've done ads with Bitmojis and without Bitmojis, and the ones with Bitmojis overperform because people see like, oh, no one else is doing that, right? No one's putting their Bitmojis in their apartment ads, right? So if you're looking for a demographic, boom, it hit them. And again, we had 2 sets of ads running. One had just a little Bitmoji in it, the other was just plain, and the ones with the Bitmojis completely converted higher. Using as much video as you can. Food pictures always work. We try to kind of mix some of the posts we post on Facebook and Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. We're using stories a lot more for Instagram stories and Snapchat. Some of the people in my team are just hilarious, and so their Snapchat is just really, really funny. We did a lot of crazy things. So stop motion, so that Tootsie Roll one's a stop motion one. I don't know. Yeah. Just like I said, we just like to have fun, and I think that's what we wanted our brand to kind of portray. So,
what's your take on social media influence and influencers? 60 Minutes had a story over the weekend about
we're doing
a lot of these young influencers on these platforms like Snapchat that have huge followings and are working with brands now.
Yeah, super hot. I feel like that's where everything's going right now. The trick is, how do you find the right people? And for us, in most cases, for I would say 90% of brands, it's not finding the superstars that they were talking about on 60 Minutes. It's not the people with hundreds of thousands of fans. It's the people with, 700, but they're extremely influential around their peer groups. And we do have some software, Ready Pulse, there's BuzzStream, there's a couple different softwares that can kind of analyze you from your Twitter profile and from your Instagram profile, how much social influence you have over your friends, with how those interactions occur. So there's some really cool technology just in general coming out. But I would say that in the next 6 to 9 months, that's a lot of brands, specifically big brands, but small ones too, are planning for that and trying to figure out how do they create content and actually get someone else to create their content, right? I'm going to give you a free vitamin and you're going to tell me how much you love it and how much it changed your life. Reviews are kind of on that same line. Huge right now.
I've had that happen with me with Urban Outfitters. Yesterday I just got my first shipment and I got over $600 worth of merchandise just to take pictures in and post.
So how did they identify you?
I'm not too sure. I was tagging them in all my pictures, so I pretty much figured out that's probably how they found me. And then I had a follower that I kind of just clicked on, and I was like, oh, and it was like, oh, his name was Derek, and he was like, oh, the social media coordinator, and I was like, why did he start following me? And then the official Urban Outfitters men's DM'd me 3 weeks ago and asked for my shipping address and what I want, free stuff, and I was like, of course.
What do I have to do? So did they give you a quantity of pictures that they expect, or did they give you any of that?
No, they just said, here's all this stuff.
That's awesome.
That's way more open. That's actually awesome for you. A lot of times there's some pretty intense kind of expectations from that, but the rules are kind of also preventing them from doing that. So, but just the concept, there's automatically some love you have for them, right? They just gave you $600 worth of clothes. You are going to tell somebody about it, right?
Yeah.
And the Federal Trade Commission has concerns about transparency and all of this, that if you are basically being paid to promote something, your followers should know that.
But see, they're getting around that because they're not making him do anything, so he doesn't have to put ad on all his pictures. So that's the fine line that these brands are yeah, sure, you want to tell us how awesome we are? Sure, you can take it. Did it have a card in there that said,
Yep.
handwritten?
Yeah, it was handwritten. It was well, if you want to, it was if you, we hope you like the clothes we chose for you. If you share, make sure you tag UO Men's.
So how many followers was that for Instagram?
Yep.
How many followers do you have on Instagram?
15,000.
What?
See.
That is
Pretty
crazy.
good.
I didn't know.
See, and do you post a lot?
Now 15,000
how often?
I'm going to follow you.
At least every day, every other day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
And how many of those pictures do you have? Do you have fashion or
Fashion, men's fashion, kind of tagged with it as well.
Yeah. See, that's genius because you know what, you can build on that. Start a blog. You can capitalize on that quick. And those brands, that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for that 15,000. Because for them you're a lot less expensive than some of these influencers charge $5,000 to $10,000 per post. And so for whatever their cost, which is probably Urban Outfitters probably takes $200, a couple shipping of their direct merchandise, and that's so valuable to them. And chances are you're probably gonna take their picture, you're probably gonna tag on it. They bet on that, and I see brands doing that a lot more, and that's exciting for you. You should you should get that train rolling because from a brand perspective, we are looking for those people. So. Jewelry, there's kind of those categories that go on watches, jewelry, any of that kind of those similar categories. You may want to start, you can look bigger than you even have a stream coming in because they like to compete against that stuff. Gotcha. So if you kind of use that and you start tagging them, other brands are like, oh, maybe he could get some of my stuff.
And I would think an area like men's clothing is probably not as competitive as women's clothing
I would say
in terms of a space to operate. I mean, that would be important, wouldn't it, to find a space that isn't so noisy that you can really have an impact?
And do the opposite of what you would imagine. So, for example, I bet on Pinterest you could get a lot of traction, and I bet blogging you could get a lot of traction because it's saturated with the female side, but males are on there. I just read a report of how men search on Pinterest. It's definitely a thing. They're just not as vocal about it.
Yeah, I just started my blog over the summer.
Oh, good.
And then I've actually started a vlog, video series too. So.
Good. Yeah, get the right momentum, you can make that a job. Like, they pay a lot for that. And like I said, I think that's where things are going. It's all about personal branding. And I think it's important for everybody to have a personal brand, whether or not you're going to be on that side or just getting a job, right? When I search for an employee, they better have a website that tells me who they are. They better have good content. They better not have spelling errors. They better have multiple pictures that showcase that they know how to brand, right? They know how to brand themselves, so they know how to brand my clients. We don't even look at candidates that don't have digital profiles. That's one way we weed them out.
Someone in a position like Charles is right now, would you advise or not advise in some cases to reach out within his network, either tagging somebody or kind of making them aware of a particular, like you said, you started a vlog, something that's new, something that's fresh that they might miss? I mean, do you do those kinds of things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the best part about the situation you're in right now is you're in that middle ground of influencers that you're on their radars, but in their minds, you're probably a lot like you're the secret weapon, right? Because you just are kind of getting started. Like, that's what they're looking for. So if you can brand that part of it, like, I'm an up and comer, I'm all of a sudden getting this traction, they're going to see that like pace and realize like, I need to capture that now, right? Before he gets too big, too expensive, too crazy. And so some of that is just how you position. But yeah, I'd reach out to them. I mean, when the fire's hot, like, go, because it doesn't always last long,
Gosh, I got some homework to do.
Go.
Extra credit?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, definitely.
That's what you should do. I don't know what the research projects
Yeah,
are.
I mean, if you go viral, you get an automatic A+. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it just shows you anybody, good content consistently makes a difference. And tagging, you gotta use the right hashtags, use the right tags. And don't be afraid to reach out to people personally. I mean, that's what, like, we do that all the time. Like, when we're looking for influencers, we'll one-to-one, like, hey, here's some, free stuff. Would you mind taking some pictures and let us know how it turned out? And we literally one-to-one Twitter message them or one-to-one Instagram DM them because it feels so much more personal. So, and we'll do it on behalf of our clients.
So going forward, these folks are, forward-looking in their careers. You mentioned some of the things in the short term that are popping. If you were to kind of look in a crystal ball and say, what's down the road 5 years? Is it possible to look out that far and say, here are the trends that as your agency is looking at it, you're definitely trying to capitalize on?
Yeah, I think this sounds so like old lady of me, but writing is so important. It doesn't matter if you're writing for Snapchat. Copy is so valuable because people can't do it very well. And so if you can write copy, and it doesn't have to be like long form, but being able to be flexible with voices of copy is something that will always be valuable. Like, everybody's gonna have to communicate. So I think that's really important. And then adaptation, which you guys are good at, but how can you communicate that in different ways that connects the generations and connects how these tools are going to make a difference for me as a business owner, or like being able to demonstrate the value, because the platforms are going to change, they're going to shift, they're going to become more disposable, they're going to become more whatever. There's always going to be that change, but if you can figure it out just a slight bit ahead the next one, like, you're already going to be in that mindset. I mean, I think the media will consistently like the media, like video, there's gonna be more videos, there's gonna be more fast content, but I think right now where we're seeing a lot of this niche apps kind of integrate into some of the main ones. I don't think the big ones are going away. Although, did you hear Vine just closed up shop like today? A couple hours ago it was released, which is really surprising to me. That they had a huge grasp on that like video, but Snapchat just pushed them to the side.
And Twitter apparently is in some trouble. They're laying off a lot of people and nobody will buy them.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Twitter ads are horrible. We've never got good results. We've used Twitter ads since they've started, and they suck. Like, I like using Twitter for like background conversations, finding articles and links, but I think Twitter as a social platform is really difficult because it's so noisy and people have a lot of followers, and you don't always see what you care about, and I think that they have a big problem with
It
that.
almost seems to me like Twitter should almost become like a non-profit public service utility. It's
Yeah.
just the kind of thing that you go to for that kind of, it's almost like Google
Right.
in that sense, less than some of these other platforms that are really monetizing.
Yeah, I think that's where I think Twitter's had a really hard time figuring out what their money making strategy is, because it's been ads, and I think they actually sell to, not ads, but they sell. Is this right? They sell their data feeds to different companies. I can't remember what it is. There's another big way that they make money, but the ad side of it is just really ineffective, and they're expensive. So like Facebook, we can get like less than 50 cents a click on the paid side, and Twitter is usually like $3 to $4. So that's a big gap. And really, the audience isn't any more valuable, right? I mean, the people are in about the same kind of mindset.
But I think this also kind of raises an interesting issue for us in trying to keep pace with all of this. So something like Vine, I think about Meerkat that had this run at South by Southwest and didn't go anywhere. Periscope and Twitter kind of came in and pushed it out. There are all these things that pop up as the next great new thing, and a lot of them are going to fail, right? So as Chatterkick's perspective on this is, you're just kind of constantly monitoring and trying to see what's going to work and what's not.
Yeah, we know that we have to be flexible and make smart decisions, and know that what we may do today, I always am learning from a sales perspective and from a client perspective, and just in general, like the things that you can do with these platforms, like they're so deep, like Snapchat. There's so many cool things you can do with Snapchat. Half of them I'm just now figuring out. And I do this every day. I run this. I work with people who know way more about this stuff than I do. But, it's like, oh, if you do this, this, and this, or what if you say this, they'll make it do this. And it's really, really interesting. And I think making sure we're always one step ahead of our clients, that's just the value that we can provide. So I'm not worried about the platforms coming and going. Like that's always been the case. As long as we stay up on it, we're able to add value.
It seems like a lot of the companies out there with different tools are constantly putting out white papers or, lists of 10 things you can do. Are those kinds of things valuable in helping you keep up?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely look at those things. We published one on digital recruitment for social media, so we have that available on our site. But honestly, I think the things that we learn the most from are not from our colleagues in the agency side, it's from the users, right? Because if I watch and we have a young influencer program that we invite people about age 13, maybe even sometimes younger, and 18 to figure out, how are you using, let me just watch you use Snapchat. Because what I see in that is probably very different than what you're telling me, right? You may say I use it to communicate with your friends, but when I see the velocity that you're doing, that just shows me that's what you're expecting to receive with communication, right? And you just sent 35 snaps in less than a minute. And now in 2 years, when you're in the business world, those managers that are going to be managing you are not going to send you 35 pieces of content in 1 minute. So how are we going to bridge that gap when that comes? So those are the type of learnings that I try to do. And plus we ask them, where do you find your reviews? Reviews are so big. Whose reviews are you paying attention to? So we can kind of get an idea on what the next steps are. But that's been really helpful for us to try to get a pulse on what's coming up.
So that's an interesting measurement issue in the sense that, the traditional social science tools of measurement like surveys and experiments and focus groups are sort of, in that sense, giving way to, you were almost doing ethnography there, really observing in kind of just what are you doing with this tool?
Yeah, well, and I think, half of those measurement tools are, crap, right? Because realistically, and I think this is what's happening with Snapchat right now, right? So they said, and I get this from a big picture standpoint, that their prime demographic is users 18 to 34. And I get that. But I also know my dad, who's almost 60, is on Snapchat. He is in the farm community. He does not use a desktop. He uses his phone, check the weather all the time. He has an iPhone. But he uses Snapchat because my brother, who's 28, had a baby, and that's how he sends baby pictures, right? And so he gets Snapchat. And he uses it differently, But my dad is not unique in that sense that he's on Snapchat at age 58. And I go to speeches all the time and I ask who has Snapchat installed on their phone. That's a very different question than who uses Snapchat. And there's a lot of people like that are my parents' age that use Snapchat, and they're missing from the data, right? Because nobody's asking them. So, or if they are, like, they're a small percentage, but that doesn't mean they're less important. So I like to pull data from, yes, take what's there, but also use circumstantial data, because I think that is extremely important when you look at what is really happening and not just, oh, now it's last year, now we understand what happened last year, right? So being hyper aware of that stuff is important.
Yeah, I think the academic research community is really having this challenge how to keep up with all of this change, because the change is so rapid.
Yeah, I think the best example of that is the polling data, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a prime example of, if you've listened to any, they really don't know what's going to happen. Like, and I think a lot of people are finally starting to admit that, because they realize that their old phone calls aren't working as well as they used to. And, oh, by the way, no one has landlines. And how am I going to find this 22-year-old's cell phone number? And all of these problems that are out there, I think that it's finally like hitting people that maybe our data samples aren't as good as they were to make really definite predictions.
Well, and the fact that we're communicating so much in these social channels. I mean, you look at the Trump campaign, and he went from nothing a couple of years ago to 8-10 million followers all of a sudden on Twitter. We're not sure how much that mattered, but it clearly mattered some.
Right, exactly. You look at the Kardashians, you look at Trump, like, they're geniuses on marketing. If you really want to figure out, it doesn't matter if you like them or not, they know how to market nothing, right? The Kardashians are famous for no reason. Really.
Tape.
Huh?
Sex tape.
But that's just one of them, right? How do they know about everybody else?
Chris is a genius.
Exactly. Right? She knows how to market and brand. Like, they are, again, like them or not, they know how to work the system. They have brands for like 7 people, and like, even if you look on like any celebrity, you will see the Kardashians like 4 or 5 times in a celebrity stream, and they are just such a small percentage of the people that act and have celebrity status. But they are just genius at marketing, and they know how to consistently create content. Even their lack of content is content. Like, do you realize this? Like, Kim is making a statement about not making a statement because she's not posting, but it's still in our news. Oh, Kim's not posting. Oh, she's posting. Nope, she's not. She's going to. Is she going to post? Nope, I don't know. Like, that's the stories that we're having, and it's all about the reason that we care is because she's already created the brand. Like,